Don't let the first problem you see become the only problem you solve. Because sometimes the thing that looks like the problem isn't actually the problem at all. Hello, my friends. Come on in. It is always such a gift to spend this time together with you. If you've been here before, welcome back. And if this is your first time joining me, I'm glad you found your way here. I want to extend a warm welcome to you. I'm Lucianne, and here at Amazing by Design, we intentionally take a pause from the noise and the busyness of our everyday life, and we come together for honest conversations about how faith intersects with our daily lives and what it looks like to live connected with God without pressure or performance. And I'll admit, here in this space, we're partial to our coffee or our tea. So if you can, grab your mug. I have mine, and let's settle into today's conversation. Have you ever received information and immediately felt like you needed to do something with it? I know this is worth us talking about today because in those moments, I know how urgency can raise its ugly head. You know, it's that feeling that we all get deep within our gut when someone calls with a problem. Maybe it's a family member calling to express a need that they have. Or maybe it's a friend who's struggling. Or perhaps you receive information in general about a situation that causes concern for you. A conversation you overheard perhaps on a news report, something that came across your social media feeds, and consequently, immediately, your mind begins to ask, what should I do about this? I have noticed this as a common trait among women. We often assume that because we have been informed about a situation, we need to do something about it. Now, I've noticed this not only in my own life and how I used to approach things, but in the lives of the many women that I've worked with over the years. This is what happens. Information arrives, our awareness, it's awakened, and almost immediately we move towards action. Not because we're trying to control things, but because we genuinely care. However, somewhere along the way, many of us have learned that being loving meant taking responsibility every time a need arises. We approach it with the mindset that says, if I can help, I should help. We learned that being kind meant being helpful. Being considerate meant stepping into rescue. And I get it. Those are genuine desires. But they often create an unconscious equation. Problem equates to action. And the more I wrestled with this in my own life, I began asking myself a simple question. Just because I'm aware of a problem, does that mean it's mine to solve? Now, there's a thought you can borrow if you like. The more that I personally sat with that question, the more I began uncovering what actually was driving my response. And one of the more surprising things that I've learned is this. Sometimes what appears to be helping is actually an attempt to relieve the discomfort that the problem is causing internally. It's true. Just think about it. You hear about a problem, and inherently, that creates discomfort. Concern rises to the surface. You can feel your body tensing up. and uncertainty presents itself. Responsibility begins to automatically feel weighty. And consequently, taking immediate action often relieves that discomfort, even though in the long run, it causes additional discomfort somewhere else down the road. Discomfort that comes from overcommitting, discomfort that comes from exhaustion. Now, be sure to hear this. I'm not saying that situations don't need attention, but what I am saying is this: does it require your attention? Urgency doesn't override the need for discernment. Many women have been conditioned that when they feel any sort of discomfort, taking action relieves that pressure. But what if that discomfort is merely a signal to pay attention? What if discomfort is the doorway to discernment? Now, that seemingly small shift in perspective is actually really huge. Because when we react in urgency energy, we may very well be bypassing the truth about what actually needs to happen next. When I find myself pondering these type of things, I like to go to scripture. And in this case, I found myself meditating on the account in the Bible where Jesus fed the 5,000. Let's take a look at that together for just a moment through the lens of taking immediate action. The disciples gathered information. There were thousands of people. They had gathered to listen to Jesus. It had been a very long day, and they recognized that by this time, there's no food to feed all these people. The resources appeared limited. Now, the information, it was accurate. Their concern, it was definitely legitimate. And the solution seemed obvious: send them away. The disciples responded to the urgency of the information. Problem solved, discomfort avoided. Jesus, on the other hand, he responded differently to the exact same information that the disciples had. Let's look at what he does. He paused. He asked questions. He remained connected to his relationship with the Father. The disciples, they saw a food problem. Jesus, he saw things differently. He saw an opportunity to reveal something to the disciples and to the masses about the Father. Now, the practical need, it still mattered. Jesus didn't bypass that truth. But what Jesus did do is he discerned that there was something deeper happening beneath the urgency of the situation. He knew he could feed the people and address the issue at hand. He was interested in accomplishing more than just that. He was interested in taking care of the people's physical need, while teaching the disciples that they can only do so much in their own ability without staying connected to the Father. And the people, well, they got to be on the receiving end of a miracle in motion. Now let's step back for just a moment. What can we take away from this account? And I believe this is the important takeaway. Don't let the first problem you see become the only problem you solve. More often than not, there's something deeper happening beneath the surface. something that the apparent problem is masking. And discernment is what helps us recognize the difference. Now, our awareness, that creates an opportunity for us to invite God into the equation so that we can discern what love requires before we decide what action is required. Sit with that one for just a moment. Because then the question shifts from, what can I do, to what does love require here? Now, those are two different questions. And this is why that's important. Because the presence of a problem requires us to discern what the most loving response actually looks like. And it may not be the very first thing that comes to your mind. Sometimes it looks like not doing anything at all. Sometimes it looks like simply listening. Other times, it may look like setting a boundary. Or maybe it looks like saying, no, I can't help you with that. Now, I am well aware that as we consider these options, discomfort sets in immediately. And I want to share this with you. The thing that changed the discomfort into congruency for me was learning to pause. First, I had to recognize that pausing before taking action was actually the most loving thing I could do. Recognizing that I may not be seeing the full picture here. Perhaps, just maybe, God's at work behind the scene, but all I can see is the problem. And then I had to become comfortable in the pause. And the thing that helped me to become comfortable in those moments was learning to ask God two simple questions. And if you've been following along for any length of time, you've probably heard me say this before. These two simple questions. God, what do you want me to know? And what do you want me to do? But here today, I want you to take notice of the order because it matters. The first question is, what do you want me to know? Because that's where discernment kicks in. Then, what do you want me to do? When the discomfort is attached to waiting on God, it doesn't feel like pressure. It feels congruent. Not all discomfort is a signal to take immediate action. Some discomfort is simply the feeling of learning to trust God differently. Discernment, it allows awareness to become wisdom rather than urgency. In doing so, we actually demonstrate love in caring for others in a way that God knows best. Going back to scripture, the disciples thought sending the people away was best. God, on the other hand, he had another plan, one that extended far beyond the first problem the disciples noticed. And as you and I become more discerning, we can acknowledge what problems need immediate actions and which ones do not. We also learn which problems are ours to solve and which are not. And above all, we also learn to trust that love isn't always found in the fastest response. Because when we remain connected to God long enough to discern his heart in that matter, we often discover that wisdom accomplishes what urgency never could. And this is my invitation to you this week. The next time information arrives, and you immediately feel pressure to act, pause. Invite God into the equation. Have the conversation with Him. What do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? And then trust Him enough to answer in that order. In our humanity, we want the problem solved and the discomfort to go away as soon as possible. I get it. But what if, when we allow our spirits to lead, we find the discomfort is a signal to tap into discernment with God? Perhaps that's where our journey with God deepens, not by doing more, but by becoming more aware of God's presence in the space between knowing and doing. And honestly, this is why we gather in this space, so we could learn together how to live from who we truly are. And if you're longing for more honest conversations like this, you are always welcome to join me here each week. And bring a friend along. Share these episodes with the women you know, because often these conversations naturally open the door to deeper healing, to greater awareness, and to spiritual growth. And if you feel led to explore this work more deeply, there's a link in the show notes where you can schedule a call with me. It's complimentary, and it's there when the time is right for you. For now, here's a thought to carry with you as you step back into your day. Discernment allows awareness to become wisdom rather than urgency. And wisdom often reveals what urgency could never see. And then there's this truth that never changes. You are chosen. You are loved. You are amazing by design.